Hello, the name is Daman Dev Sood, your host for my weekly show, My Top Tips, back after a short break. Every Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. IST. Every day, every week, every episode, I pick up a topic of concern to me, to you, to we, in the field of resilience, which includes PCM, risk, crisis, environment, sustainability, all according to me. Operational resilience, organizational resilience, different names to be given when the scope keeps changing, increasing, or decreasing. The topic today, very close to my heart, is resilience is built in stories, not in boardrooms and never in boardrooms. That's we are going to discuss today. The inspiration behind today's talk is this clip video shared by Palki Sharma Upadhyay, a name very well known in India in the field of journalism. Let's watch that video, which will take most of the time today, but there's a great learning from that video. That's why I'm playing it here.
The subject of today's talk is mind the gap. And the first thought that comes to mind is the metro train and its constant advice to mind the gap that we don't really dwell on once we are off the train. But mind the gap can and does have a more profound meaning. Today I'm telling you about the gaps that I grappled with and how I tried to fill them in my own way. This is my story, and before I begin it, I have a question for you. What is your story? When you grow up and talk to your grandchildren, what's the story that you want to tell? Will your story be more exciting than your CV? Or will you say you woke up, went to work, completed projects, met deadlines and targets, got promoted every other year, basically went through the motions of life, did not drop too many balls, but did not disrupt very much either? Think of the story you want to tell a few decades from now and then start writing it today. Because our world today is essentially a grand storytelling competition. We're all striving to present our own national, cultural, and personal stories in the most persuasive manner. I remember reading somewhere that in the olden times we said,
इस पल को मुमकिन करने के लिए रिया ने पहले से ही शुरुआत कर दी थी.
if you want to poison a people, you must poison their wells. But in this day and age, as novelist Ben Okri said, if you want to poison a people, poison their stories. Because stories sway people. They change the course of policies, politics, and indeed the world. I'll give you an example. During the Second World War, America had a list of Japanese cities it wanted to bomb with the atom bomb. The city of Kyoto was on that list, but it was removed by the Secretary of War, American Secretary of War, Henry Stimson. Instead, they put Nagasaki. Why do you think he removed Kyoto? Because he'd gone there for his honeymoon, he'd seen Kyoto's beauty and culture, and he did not want to see it destroyed. You could say Kyoto's story saved it. And that's why it's very important to be in control of your story, to actively shape it. And this is the first gap that I encountered in my career as a journalist. We are a country of 1.4 billion people. We have hundreds of channels, a very aware and politically engaged audience. But we did not have a single news channel or newspaper that told our story to the world. The New York Times writes something about India and it immediately becomes a Twitter trend. You may trash it, but you're still consuming it and reacting to it. The Economist weighs in on an Indian election and it becomes part of the political debate. We are letting the foreign press shape our self-image. Which Indian newspaper triggers a similar response in the West? If there is disturbance in Kashmir, the world learns about it from the BBC or Al Jazeera. They use their own lens, their own editorial biases, and for the moment that's besides the point. The argument I'm making is very simple. Why can't India, the land of epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, tell its own story in its own words? This gap was filled by WION, India's first international news channel of which I'm a part. Gap number 2. You have a story, but why should anyone listen to it? There are multiple channels with heavyweight anchors all discussing the same story with the same guests, the same graphics, the same visuals, and the same decibel levels. We like that song, I'm just a copy of a copy of a copy. We all kept looking at each other and perhaps forgot the viewer. We wanted to do what someone else was doing, bigger, bolder, brighter, but not necessarily better. If you have 10 windows, I'll have 12. But we forgot to ask what the viewer wants. Do you want to see so many talking heads? Do you want an endless and frankly useless shouting match every day? And if you want to see a good stunt, will you watch Avengers or Anchors? In this clutter, how do you become different? What sets you apart is the way you tell the story. And that brings me to the concept of the katha and the kathakar. Now, if you have a child or a niece or a nephew, you would have noticed something. They all ask for the same story to be told over and over again. We did the same with our grandparents. We know the story from beginning to end, but we want to hear it again. Why do we like the same story retold? Because what is pulling us is not the katha or the story, but the kathakar or the storyteller, the manner in which that story is told. That's what holds the magic. How do we create this magic in news? Well, I was introduced to the life-changing concept called orbit shift. It's a very simple concept. You all know what a gravitational pull is. It's, in the simplest of terms, it keeps you grounded, but it also prevents you from flying. As professionals and individuals, we are saddled with many levels of gravity. Number one is personal gravity. This is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. There is self-doubt, and there are limitations that your mind sets for you. Number two is company gravity. This cannot be done in our organization because you will not get cross-functional support, or because yahan aisa hi kaam hota hai. We've all heard this and accepted it. Number three is industry gravity. How can you do a 9 p.m. show without guests? It doesn't happen anywhere. How can you not take a break in the middle of the show? This is the industry practice, and soon it becomes industry gravity, and we do not challenge it. Number four is the social or cultural gravity, prejudice, preconceptions. In India, we flaunt the jugaad. We do not want a long-term plan because we believe in figuring something out at the last moment with jugaad. Now think of the number of times when you've had to struggle with this cumulative gravity. It is the biggest hurdle in the path of innovation. It kills ideas. And you rationalize all of it in the name of practicality. But sometimes you have to be impractical. You have to throw yourself at the deep end and burn the bridge to safety to come up with something that is really transformative. And that is what is called an orbit shift. And that's what we did with Gravitas, or we hope we did. We created a primetime news and views show minus multiple guests. We went back to the drawing board to focus on tight scripts, on relevant subjects, research, analysis, fact checks, basic things really, which should ideally be SOP for all news. But they were not. Gap number three, or should I say challenge. Who watches TV news anymore? There is an explosion of content around you. Television is already the second screen. The mobile phone has taken the top spot. So my news story is competing with a WhatsApp forward, an Instagram reel, a YouTube spoof, and what have you. One editor famously said, my competition is not other news shows. My competition at 9 o'clock is Big Boss or Kapil Sharma. Another one asked for fizz and said that do not do water journalism, colorless, flavorless, odorless. This is the age of Coke. Find your flavor. Well, what should that flavor be? Inform without making a fuss. Give your viewer value for time. That's the flavor we decided on. Use the old playbook of Aristotle to make your story compelling. He gave us 5 elements of a good story some 2,000 years ago. And these are the 5 elements. Ethos, authority and character, which comes with credibility and commitment to the issues that you raise in your broadcast. Do people trust you? Do they see you as an authority on a subject? If they do, they will listen to you. Number 2, logos, that is reason, which involves making a logical appeal, using data and facts to make a rational argument. Because you cannot make an assertion with no basis in fact or logic. Number 3 is pathos, emotion, and this is different from drama. It's a genuine connect with the audience through honest and effective communication. Number 4 is metaphor, which helps the viewer process complex issues. When you give them relatable parallels, it makes news more memorable. And number 5 is brevity, using short sentences, punchy lines, informative tag-outs. And finally, the gap that is common to all human stories, the gap that I continue to try to fill, the question of purpose. What is the purpose of what you're doing? What do you really want to do? And to what end? It's like that dreaded interview question. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself at the end of this journey you've embarked on? Honestly, I've not been able to answer this question, so I gave myself another one. Which is the one story that changed your life? Or if that sounds too dramatic, the one story that profoundly impacted you or just stayed with you? For me, that story was the story of the ugly duckling. It's a nursery tale. You may remember it. A duck lays some eggs, they hatch. All ducklings look similar, except one. He's bigger, awkward, doesn't have webbed feet. He feels sad about not fitting in until he sees a flock of swans and realizes he was never even a duck in the first place. He was a swan, bracketed with ducks by mistake. He realizes he's beautiful and not ugly, and he flies away. And I find this story very powerful because it is simple and relatable. It talks to me. I think at some point in our lives, we've all been the ugly duckling, under immense pressure to fit in and beating ourselves up for not being able to. I'm sure all of you have such stories. You read them or saw them, and then the penny dropped. Oh, this is what this is about. And these stories shaped us. Where do you find them? In books, in movies, in TV shows, cartoons, basically mass media. And if mass media has such a profound impact on minds, my purpose, I believed, as a cog in the wheel of mass media, should be to find and tell such stories that inspire, that motivate, or at the very least, that trigger ideas and conversations. So that, I would say, became my purpose, to shape ideas, to make sense of the news, to empower you to form your own opinion, because you're intelligent enough to choose. I'm going to wrap with that. All the very best. Thank you.
Very well said, Palki. Thank you very much. Viewers, while she might have been promoting her channel, I do not mind as long as there is some learning. And in 10 minutes, I have picked up at least 10 lessons for me. The stories are important. Stories that leave long impression. Create your own story. Not forget your audience, your interested parties in your resilience programs. Stay focused on your programs. Then the gravity she talked about, the company's gravity, which is a resistance to any change, any program. She talked about doing it differently, challenging the status quo. I had written a little earlier one of my blogs available on my website. Sometimes it's okay not to read between the lines. It's okay to be dumb to be resilient. This is about unlearning to learn, because many of us feel that we have done it, done and dusted, as we say. We know it all. We know a lot. So unlearning is important. She talked about that story, Ugly Duckling, very important. I'll touch upon that once again a little later. And she talked about the purpose of life, purpose of organization. In resilience programs, we call it context of the organization. And having gone across companies, countries, and industry sectors in different roles, including auditor also, I find this to be a big gap. If you do not understand the context of the organization, context of our organization, we will not be able to do good, well on any of the programs, whether it is resilience program or any other program. Let me continue with some slides that I have further to talk about. Resilience is built in stories. This is my takeaway. This is my message today based on Palki's discussions.
We knew we had to persevere, even when the storms came.
The data suggests otherwise, gentlemen. Look at the utilization metrics here.
Oh, that's so true.
So resilience is built in stories, not in boardrooms, and never in boardrooms. This is what we need to learn. These stories need to be of success, continuity, crisis, recovery, innovation, and improvement. So these need to be woven carefully and mindfully. Storytelling is an art. Creating story is a skill we all can practice, must practice. Unlike real stories, real crises, stories are not live. So you have time. You can write, erase, rewrite, and refine them until you have your best version. That is exactly what testing and exercising in a resilience program does. It lets you shape your organization's story before life does it for you. Ugly Duckling, as she mentioned, beautifully referred to the story in her talk. Every organization has such a story of struggle, transformation, and rediscovery. That's what we need to keep in mind in our resilience programs. Would it not be wonderful if your company's resilience story was one that parents narrated to their children? Means that old employees told the newcomers, and the children asked them to tell it again and again and again, not being a copy of the copy of the copy. As I always do, a page from my life, I find this truth every day. I spend a lot of time with my grandson, who is going to be 9 soon, while he reads Ramayana and Mahabharata in books, watches them on TV and in theaters. I often create the scenes at home with him. First, I make it simple for him. We need to keep our plans, our resilience program easy for our audience. In my own words, with some twists also. I play the bad guy, like Tadka or Ravan, and he plays the hero, Shri Krishna, Hanumanji, or Shri Ramchandraji. Through play, he learns and remembers the most. Through training, testing, and exercising, we learn a lot in our resilience program. And after every act, I ask him, so, what did we learn today? This is once again a big gap in our organizations in resilience programs. The management, the seniors forget it after the exercise is over. Some actions are noted, but there is no relook at those whether those have been plugged, bridged, removed, or still exist. And you may say, oh, Daman, you are talking about a child, but we have grown-ups in our company, and that is a different game altogether, some might say. Let us be honest. None of us ever truly grows beyond the child within. As we move through our corporate lives, we simply learn to cover that child with layers of professionalism, processes, and protocols. Sometimes an unnecessary overload and overdose burden. If you want a resilient organization, start by uncovering those children, the ones who question, imagine, learn, and care. Those who are curious to know and fearless to tell. Once again, very important point in all risk and resilience programs that people are able to encourage to feel free and fearless to speak. That is where true resilience begins. Building resilience through stories, I'm saying, if you want a resilient organization, start by uncovering those children within your employees. Turn them into those who question, imagine, learn, and care, those who are curious to know and fearless to tell. That is where true resilience begins. Giving top tips today then. First top tip is create, don't wait for your story. Don't wait for a crisis to define your resilience story. Use testing and exercising an opportunity as opportunity to write that story in advance. Each drill, simulation, and lesson learned adds a new line to your story. When the real test comes, your people already know their script. So this is a real drama. Tip 2, make it human. Every story needs characters. Your resilience story isn't about policies or systems. It's about people, their decisions, emotions, and learnings. Highlight how teams stood together, how leadership inspired calm, and how small actions made big differences. Tip 3, let the child within learn. To build resilience, uncover the curious, fearless child within your employees. Third time I'm saying this because this is so important according to me. Let them question, imagine, and learn by doing. Tip 4, turn lessons into legends. After every crisis or exercise, ask, what did we learn from this crisis? What improvements are required to be made? Can we make? And then actually the big gap. That we do not ask questions about those gaps, whether those gaps have been filled. Capture that learning as a story worth retelling. Over time, these stories become part of your corporate folklore. Stories that new employees hear and veterans proudly narrate. My takeaways today, resilience is all about stories. The stronger your story, the stronger your organization. Watch this video again if you want to. The Art of Storytelling by Palki Sharma Upadhyay. It's a masterclass in how stories connect and inspire. Wisdom delayed is opportunity denied. The time is now for resilience. Let the sun of resilience rise. I'm expecting. If you like help, if you need help shaping your company's resilience story, you know where to find me. I will also be available at the BCI World Hybrid 2025 in London on 11th and 12th November. On 12th, I will deliver a workshop for the board resilience professionals to awaken them because they are a big risk to the organizations. Because resilience is built in stories, not in boardrooms, and never in boardrooms. Keep this in mind if you have any questions about today's discussions. Building resilience stories for your organization. If you need any help or any other question about resilience, please feel free to write to me and I will be happy to respond back. This is your host, Daman Dev Sood, logging off from my weekly show, My Top Tips. This was 107th episode. Good news, I'll be sharing in coming up episodes that I may be making few more centuries this year by the end of 2025. Next year, many more for sure. I look forward to seeing you all every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. IST in my weekly show, My Top Tips. Thank you. Bye bye.